Jake Paul has been sweating bullets ever since Conor McGregor started to give his $50 million fight offer second thoughts, and let me tell you, the problem child has been raging since. Yep, you heard that right. Now, you know Jake, he's got the whole "I'm the king of the world" persona, but it looks like his facade is starting to crack and the fight world has got front row seats to the whole fiasco. This matchup has taken a turn after Jake's recent meltdown, and I've got the exclusive scoop right here for you. Let's break it down. It's looking like the Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor fight is actually gonna happen. I mean, Conor's finally starting to entertain the idea, and let's be real, this is a whole different ball game for Jake. We're talking about Conor McGregor, the same guy who stepped into the ring with Floyd Mayweather and gave him a run for his money. Mayweather, guys, he's been the poster boy for UFC for all these years, and he's pretty good with boxing gloves too. So yeah, Jake's got a massive mountain to climb here. This ain't Tyron Woodley or Ben Askren, we're talking about the notorious Conor McGregor. This guy's got lightning fast hands, a chin of steel, and that iconic left hook that's KO'd countless opponents. McGregor's got this insane ability to switch between boxing and MMA styles on the fly, and let's not forget his mind games. He's a master at getting inside his opponents' heads. Jake's gonna have to deal with all that, and it's gonna be a whole different level of pressure. Even with all the training in the world, it's gonna be tough for Jake to hold up against a fighter like Conor. This is gonna be a real test for Jake, and I'm not sure he's ready for it. Jake's fear of fighting McGregor is all over his face. Yeah, you heard me right. The same guy who brags about knocking people out in one round is absolutely terrified of the notorious. It's like a kid pretending to be tough in front of his bullies. Deep down, Jake knows he's in over his head. Remember when he said, "I'm gonna knock him out faster than you can say McGregor"? Yeah, that's just a front. Behind closed doors, I bet he's pacing back and forth, sweating bullets. Conor McGregor is a different breed of fighter. He's got this aura of invincibility, and for good reason. He's fought the best in the world and come out on top. Jake, on the other hand, has mostly fought retired athletes or guys who are clearly out of their league. This is a whole new level of competition. It's like putting a rookie up against a seasoned pro. The odds are stacked against Jake, and everyone knows it. Even his own fans are starting to doubt him. You can see the cracks in his facade starting to show. He's trying to act tough, but his body language says otherwise. This is a classic case of a bully picking on someone smaller until he meets someone who can actually hurt him. Conor and Jake have been going back and forth for years now. Come on, you can almost say they're the same men in different flesh. Both athletes love stirring up controversy to stay in the spotlight. And you know what happens when two people with this persona go toe-to-toe? I'm sure you know that Jake has built his entire career by calling out every boxing legend and their grandmas. From Mike Tyson to Floyd Mayweather, the problem child hasn't spared anyone. I guess you can see where he gets that name from. Jake's been trying to get Conor to put ink on the paper for years now, but the Notorious has been shaking it off like no other. Yeah, the Irishman has made it clear from the get-go that he's got no interest in being a part of Jake's circus act. I mean, this is a man who has shared a ring with the undefeated legend Floyd Mayweather. Of course, he wasn't ready to tarnish his legacy by locking horns with Jake Paul. Well, a lot has changed since, and Jake's recent fight with Mike Perry was a game-changer for this matchup.
Very noticeable size.
Told you, man.
Now, the Jake Paul versus Mike Perry fight was a whole different ballgame. People were expecting a slugfest, a back-and-forth brawl, given Perry's reputation as a bare-knuckle brawler. But Jake came out swinging like a madman. He looked bigger, stronger, and way more technically sound than anyone anticipated. He dropped Perry 3 times before finishing him off in the 6th round. It was a shocking performance. But here's the kicker. Instead of getting all the praise and respect, Jake faced a backlash. The fight world wasn't impressed. They called it another carefully orchestrated charade, another easy win against a hand-picked opponent. The narrative shifted from Jake Paul is a real fighter to Jake Paul is a boxing promoter with gloves on. But let's talk about Conor McGregor for a second. This guy was all in on Mike Perry.
To Michael Perry, you know, one of our big stars here, the king of violence, he titles himself, and you know he's had such a rise in the sport. Now he's up against you know, a little dweeb of a thing in a fight this weekend that we're all rooting for him. But you know, this is the real deal. No one.
Look at what has happened to Michael Perry, one of our big stars here, the king of violence he titles himself, and he's had such a rise in the sport, and now he's up against a little dweeb of a thing in a fight this weekend. We're all rooting for him. This is the real thing. He saw Perry as the perfect guy to knock Jake Paul down a peg. McGregor had a lot of faith in Perry, seeing him as a wild card who could upset the apple cart. But when Perry got knocked out, it was like a dagger to the heart for Conor. Not only did he lash out at Perry on social media, calling him out for being a quitter, but he also took drastic action. Conor, being a major player in the BKFC, pulled the plug on Perry's career. But Jake Paul ain't one to back down. After Conor pulled the plug on Mike Perry, Jake swooped in like a vulture and offered Perry a job. Can you believe the audacity? It's like he's trying to start a full-on war with Conor. Conor's already a ticking time bomb, and this is just pouring gasoline on the fire. McGregor's a madman. We've seen him lose his cool over the smallest things. Imagine what he's gonna do when he sees Jake poaching his fighter. This could get ugly really fast. Jake's playing a dangerous game. He's basically daring Conor to come after him. And if there's one thing we know about Conor, it's that he doesn't back down from a challenge. This is going to be one hell of a ride. It was a shockwave through the combat sports world. Mike Perry was the king of the BKFC, having beaten some of the biggest names in the game, including Eddie Alvarez. But in a blink of an eye, his career was over. It was a brutal reminder of the power Conor McGregor holds in the combat sports industry. After hearing what McGregor said in the aftermath of the fight, which also included a number of foul-mouthed jibes at him, Jake Paul took aim at the former two-weight world champion. He insisted that McGregor focus on his own return before making Perry a big offer. Mike Perry, as you got fired by Conor McGregor from BKFC, we will hire you at BTAR into a partnership and give you some sort of role, Paul said during a post-fight episode of his podcast BS with Jake Paul. We'll figure out what that's going to be. Better has a job for you, Mike Perry. Conor McGregor's been going off on Jake Paul since the Mike Perry fight, but Jake ain't sweating it. In fact, he's calling Conor a keyboard warrior. In a recent interview with the Schmo, Jake said, "Conor McGregor, I don't really care to chat about. He's on Twitter, he's on his yacht, but he's not in the ring fucking winning. At the end of the day, he's not his own boss." Ouch. That's gotta sting. Jake definitely wants the smoke with Conor, but he's not holding his breath. Conor's still tied up with the UFC, and we all know how Dana White feels about his fighters crossing over to boxing. But let's be real, if the money's right, Dana would probably let Conor do a Rocky Balboa. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see this mega fight after all. But for now, it's just a bunch of back-and-forth trash talk. Jake Paul is all about the money fights. This guy has a knack for matching himself up with opponents that will generate maximum hype and dollar signs. His upcoming fight with Mike Tyson is a perfect example. On paper, it's a mismatch, but it's a goldmine when it comes to pay-per-views. And let's face it, Conor McGregor is the ultimate cash cow in combat sports. A fight between these two would be a PPV bonanza. Jake even threw out a $50 million offer to Conor a few years back. Imagine what that number looks like now. There's no way in hell either of these guys is turning down that kind of money. Sooner or later, this fight is gonna happen. It's inevitable. The fans are salivating at the thought of the trash talk alone. It would be epic, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Conor is a battle-tested warrior. Jake might be overconfident, but he can't afford to underestimate the Irishman. This potential matchup has all the makings of a legendary fight. This whole Jake Paul and Conor McGregor beef over Mike Perry is pure gold. These guys can pick a fight over anything. It's like watching two kids argue over a toy, but with millions of dollars on the line. The boxing world is loving every second of it. We all know Jake isn't going to fight the real top dog like Canelo Alvarez, so we gotta settle for these entertaining matchups. The fight with Mike Perry was supposed to be a banger, but it was a major letdown. Let's be honest, it was more like a glorified sparring session. We need something with a bit more meat on its bones, and a Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor fight would definitely deliver. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. So, there you go, Fight World, that's all I have for you today. What do you think about Jake being terrified of fighting Conor McGregor? Fill in the comment section with your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more boxing news. See you in the next video.